Theodore Roosevelt, the accidental president who changed America. Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, was a man of many talents and interest whose progressive policies literally changed America. But what if I told you that he became president by accident? Theodore Roosevelt was born on October 27, 1858, in New York City to a wealthy family. Roosevelt suffered from severe asthma as a child and was homeschooled to protect his health. He was a voracious reader and developed a lifelong passion for learning. He pursued a wide range of interests, including natural history, taxidermy, and exploration. He enrolled at Harvard College in 1876, where he studied a variety of subjects and excelled in boxing. Upon graduation in 1880, Roosevelt briefly attended Columbia Law School, but quickly lost interest in a legal career. Instead, he decided to enter politics, joining the Republican Party and winning a seat in the New York State Assembly in 1881 at the age of 23. Roosevelt's political career began with a focus on reform, championing efforts to combat corruption and improve the lives of working-class Americans. In 1884, after the sudden death of his wife and mother on the same day, he retreated to the Badlands of North Dakota to grieve and find solace. There, he adopted the rugged lifestyle of a rancher and honed his skills as a hunter, writer, and outdoorsman. Roosevelt returned to politics in 1886, where he gained a reputation for his tireless work ethic and reformist zeal. In 1897, President William McKinley appointed Roosevelt as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. He used this position to advocate for a strong and modern naval fleet. When the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898, Roosevelt resigned from his post and formed the first U.S. Volunteer Cavalry Regiment, better known as the Rough Riders. He led the regiment in the Battle of San Juan Hill in Cuba, where his bravery and leadership earned him national fame. Upon returning from the war, Roosevelt was elected as governor of New York in 1898. He continued his reform efforts, focusing on the regulation of corporations and conservation of natural resources. However, some of his fellow Republicans sought to remove him from the governorship due to his progressive policies. In a strategic move, they pushed for his nomination as vice president on the 1900 Republican ticket with President William McKinley, thinking that if he lost, he'd probably quit politics. And even if he won, the position of vice president had no power, so he couldn't do anything. He and McKinley won. Roosevelt was inaugurated as vice president in March 1901, but his tenure in this role was short-lived. Just 6 months later, on September 6, 1901, President McKinley was shot by an anarchist assassin and died 8 days later. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Roosevelt was thrust into the presidency, becoming the youngest person ever to hold the office at 42 years old. As president, Roosevelt continued to pursue his progressive agenda, which he called the Square Deal. This included policies aimed at regulating big business, protecting consumers, and conserving the environment. He played a key role in creating many of the foundational elements of America today, including breaking up corporate monopolies through his support for antitrust legislation and enforcement. He was instrumental in the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act, both aimed at ensuring the safety and quality of consumer goods. Roosevelt was an ardent conservationist, using his authority to protect millions of acres of public lands, create national parks, and establish wildlife refuges. His refusal to shoot a bear cub in 1902 on a hunting trip inspired a toy maker to name a stuffed bear after him, and the teddy bear fad soon swept the nation. His efforts laid the groundwork for the modern conservation movement in the United States. In foreign policy, Roosevelt believed in a strong and assertive America. He oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, which greatly expanded global trade and American influence. He also played a key role in negotiating the end of the Russo-Japanese War, for which he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906. Roosevelt was re-elected in 1904 and continued to serve as president until 1909. He chose not to run for a third term, adhering to the traditions set by George Washington, and hand-picked his friend and fellow progressive William Howard Taft as his successor. Despite his decision to step down from the presidency, Roosevelt remained active in politics and public life. He embarked on a year-long African safari, during which he collected specimens for the Smithsonian Institution and wrote about his experiences. In 1912, unhappy with President Taft's perceived abandonment of progressive policies, Roosevelt challenged him for the Republican nomination. Failing to secure the nomination, Roosevelt formed the Progressive Party, commonly known as the Bull Moose Party, and ran for president as its candidate. Despite a strong showing, Roosevelt lost the election to Democrat Woodrow Wilson, in part due to the split in the Republican vote. Roosevelt's health began to decline, and he suffered from a series of illnesses, including rheumatoid arthritis, malaria, and a heart condition. On January 6, 1919, he passed away in his sleep at his home in Oyster Bay, New York, at the age of 60. Roosevelt's presidency, though accidental, was a transformative period in American history. His Square Deal policies helped shape the nation's trajectory towards greater social and economic justice. As a conservationist, he preserved vast expanses of the American wilderness for future generations. As a diplomat, he demonstrated that the United States could be a powerful force for peace on the world stage. And as a man, he embodied the boundless energy, optimism, and determination that continue to define the American spirit.